Okay guys, well once again welcome to the lesson for today. My name is Alistair and I am your conference lesson teacher. And here is our conference today, talking about fears and phobias. Okay, ooh. So talking about fears and phobias, let us begin. So our agenda for today has 4 parts: an introduction to fears and phobias, talking about your fears, and dealing with fears and phobias. And lastly, number 4, asking about fears as well. Introduction to fears and phobias. Definition. A phobia is an intense, irrational fear of a specific object, situation, or activity that is typically out of proportion to the actual danger posed. Phobias cause significant distress and can interfere with a person's daily life and activities. Okay, I'm going to repeat that once again. Have a listen and read the translation. A phobia is an intense, irrational fear of a specific object, situation, or activity that is out of proportion to the actual danger posed. Phobias can cause significant distress and can interfere with a person's daily life and activities. Fear. The definition of fear. Fear is a natural, emotional response to a perceived threat or danger. It is a basic survival mechanism that triggers the body's fight or flight response, preparing an individual to either confront or flee from the danger. Fear is a natural, emotional response to a perceived threat or danger. It is a basic survival mechanism that triggers off the body's fight or flight response, preparing an individual to either confront or flee from the danger. Okay, so phobias and fears. The key differences between a phobia and a fear: intensity and rationality. Fear is a natural and rational emotional response to a real or perceived threat. Excuse me. It is proportional to the actual danger and serves as a protective mechanism. However, a phobia is an intense and irrational fear of a specific object, situation, or activity. The fear is disproportionate to the actual danger and persists even when reassured that it is not harmful. So fear is a natural and rational emotional response. A phobia is an intense and irrational fear of a specific object, situation, or activity. Let's continue thinking about the differences. Duration and impact. Fear is typically temporary and subsides once the threat is no longer present. It does not usually interfere significantly with daily life. So fear is typically temporary and subsides once the threat is no longer present. Okay. A phobia is persistent and can last a long time, often leading to avoidance behaviours. It can significantly impact a person's daily life and activities, causing distress and functional impairment. So a phobia is persistent and can last for a long time, often leading to avoidance behaviours to avoid the phobias. It can significantly impact a person's daily life and activities, causing distress and functional impairment. Okay, let's continue with differences. This time, treatments. Fear usually does not require treatment unless it becomes chronic or leads to anxiety disorders. So fear usually does not require treatment unless it becomes chronic or leads to anxiety disorders. Phobias are phobias often require treatment, such as cognitive behavioral therapy or CBT, exposure therapy or medication, to help individuals manage and overcome their irrational fears. So phobias often require treatment, such as cognitive behavioral therapy, CBT, exposure therapy or medication, to help individuals manage and overcome their irrational fears. So let's move on to the next part, talking about your fears. Here is some general vocabulary. I shall read through the list twice, so have a listen. Here we go. Fear, phobia, anxiety, panic, dread, terror, horror, apprehension, nervousness, worry. Okay, once again with this general vocabulary: fear, phobia, anxiety, panic, dread, terror, horror, apprehension, nervousness, and worry. Here we have some vocabulary for types of phobias. Okay, so I'm going to read through the list. Have a listen. They're not easy to say. Arachnophobia, fear of spiders. Claustrophobia, fear of confined spaces. Acrophobia, fear of heights. Agoraphobia, fear of open or crowded spaces. Ophidiophobia, a fear of snakes. Cynophobia, fear of dogs. Astrophobia, fear of thunder and lightning. Trypanophobia, fear of needles. Aerophobia, fear of flying. Mysophobia, fear of germs. Okay, so there is a question at the bottom. Do you have or know anyone with these phobias? So do you have any of these phobias, or do you know anyone with these phobias? So they're hard to say, but I am going to read through them again. Here we go. Arachnophobia, claustrophobia, acrophobia, agoraphobia, ophidiophobia, cynophobia, astrophobia, trypanophobia, aerophobia, and mysophobia. Okay, lots of phobias there. I think my wife has arachnophobia. I think she has a fear of spiders. Okay, well, let's continue at ways for expressing fears. So expressing fears in English can be done using various phrases and structures. Here are some common ways to express fears. Using afraid or scared as adjectives. Examples: I am afraid of spiders. She's scared of flying. They're afraid of heights. He's scared of speaking in public. We're afraid of the dark. I'm afraid of spiders. She's scared of flying. They're afraid of heights. He's scared of speaking in public. We're afraid of the dark. Okay, so other ways for expressing fears. Using fear, the word fear as a verb or noun. Using fear as a verb or noun. Examples: I fear being alone. She fears losing her job. They fear the unknown. He fears failure. We have a fear of open spaces. The last one uses fear as a noun. Have a listen. I'll read those again. I fear being alone. She fears losing her job. They fear the unknown. He fears failure. We have a fear of open spaces. Okay, so here we go with some more ways for expressing fears. This time using phobia. Using phobia as a noun. Examples: I have a phobia of snakes. She has a phobia of heights. They have a phobia of enclosed spaces. He suffers from a phobia of insects. We have a phobia of flying. Okay, let's read through those examples again. Have a listen. Here we go. I have a phobia of snakes. She has a phobia of heights. They have a phobia of enclosed spaces. He suffers from a phobia of insects. We have a phobia of flying. Okay, so let's continue expressing fears using verbs. Examples: I worry about getting lost. I worry about getting lost. She dreads making mistakes. She dreads making mistakes. They panic when they see a spider. They panic when they see a spider. He fears failing the exam. He fears failing the exam. Okay, so expressing fears using verbs in those examples. Well, guys, let's move on to the next section of our conference lesson for today, dealing with fears and phobias. Okay, how do we deal with them? So we're going to think about these strategies in English. Okay, so strategies to manage and overcome fears in English. Understand your fear. Identify triggers. Keep a journal to note situations that trigger fear. Learn about your fear. Research and understand what causes it and how it affects you. So, one strategy is to understand your fear. Another strategy to manage and overcome fears is to face your fear gradually. Gradually. Exposure therapy. Gradually expose yourself to the fear in controlled settings. Start small. Begin with less intimidating situations and progressively face more challenging ones. Okay, so a strategy here to face your fear gradually. Another strategy to manage and overcome fears is to practice relaxation techniques. Okay, practice relaxation techniques. Deep breathing. Practice deep, slow breaths to calm the nervous system. Meditation and mindfulness. Use meditation to stay present and reduce anxiety. Progressive muscle relaxation. Tense and then slowly relax each muscle group. Okay, so these are strategies to manage and overcome fears. One of them, practice relaxation techniques. Deep breathing, meditation, and progressive muscle relaxation. Tense and then slowly relax. Okay, so those are some strategies in English for you to think about. Okay, there's another strategy we can adopt too. It's to develop coping strategies. Let's have a look at these. Distraction techniques. Engage in activities you enjoy to divert your mind from fear. Stay active. Regular physical exercise can reduce anxiety and improve mood. So these are coping strategies we can develop. Distraction techniques and to stay active. Both great strategies to manage and overcome fears through coping strategies. Here we go. Our next strategy. Use visualization. Positive visualization. Imagine yourself successfully confronting and overcoming your fear. Also, mental rehearsal. Practice facing your fear in your mind to build confidence. So, use visualization as a strategy to manage and overcome fears. Positive visualization and mental rehearsal. Okay, well, let's move on to this part of the lesson, which is asking about fears. When asking and responding about fears, it's important to use clear and empathetic language. Okay, so it's important to use clear and empathetic language. Let's check some ways to ask and answer. So, we can ask questions using direct questions. Okay, so the first question expression, what are you afraid of? Example, what are you afraid of? Is it spiders, heights, or something else? Do you have any fears or phobias? Example, do you have any fears or phobias? Some people are scared of flying. Is there anything that makes you feel scared or anxious? Is there anything that makes you feel scared or anxious? For example, public speaking or crowded spaces. So those are direct questions with empathetic language. Let's have a look at some indirect questions. Using indirect questions, can you tell me if there's something that scares you? Example, can you tell me if there's something that scares you, maybe like darkness or loud noises? I'm curious to know if you have any particular fears. Example, I'm curious to know if you have any particular fears. It's always interesting to learn about these things. And then ways of discussing common fears. A lot of people are afraid of. Example, a lot of people are afraid of flying. It's a common fear. Many people feel anxious about. Example, many people feel anxious about being in crowded places. It can be overwhelming. Okay, now let's think about how we can answer these questions and say what we are afraid of. Okay, so we can also say what we are afraid of. Okay, so I'm afraid of, or I'm scared of. Okay, so what are you scared of? What are you afraid of? So guys, if you want to participate, you can write something in the chat using one of these structures. For example, I am afraid of, or I am scared of. So have a think. What are you afraid of? Okay, so I'm going to write something in the chat for me too. Okay, so I am afraid of deep water. Okay, so we've got one come in as well. I'm afraid of snakes. Yeah, I understand that. I'm afraid of swimming in the ocean. Yes, I am afraid of deep water. So yes, the ocean is scary for me too. Okay, well, thanks, guys. Is there anyone else that wants to share what you are afraid of? I'm afraid of missing the conference. Okay, fair enough. Anyone else like to add what they're afraid of? Okay, well, we're going to have a little look at our conclusion for the lesson today. So let's have a look at that. Those of you who have participated, well, thank you very much. Thank you for sharing. Okay, so this is our conclusion. Okay, so we're going to read through the conclusion before we finish the lesson today. I'll read through it twice. Okay, so conclusion. Remember, it's okay to feel afraid sometimes. The important thing is to know how to express these feelings and find ways to overcome them. Keep practicing the vocabulary and phrases we've learned, and don't hesitate to ask for help if you need it. Together, we can face our fears and support each other. Okay, well, one more time with that conclusion. Remember, it's okay to feel afraid sometimes. The important thing is to know how to express these feelings and find ways to overcome them. Keep practicing the vocabulary and phrases we've learned today, and don't hesitate to ask for help if you need it. Together we can face our fears and support each other. Okay, so some very nice English language today around the subject of fears and phobias. Okay, so guys, thank you ever so much for attending the conference lesson today. It's been a pleasure to talk about fears and phobias in English with you. But that is it for today. So on behalf of myself and the Cercle de Langues team, we'd like to say thanks for watching. And I will be back here next Monday. So I hope many of you are able to make that next conference lesson with me next Monday. In the meantime, thank you very much, everybody. Have a great evening.